More than 1 year has passed now since I tore some ligament in my knee, and thank you very much. The recovery process was actually quite swift. It only took me about 3 months before I was back fully weight training again, and it was a slow progression at the beginning, but after about 6 months, I actually hit a PR. And I got a question just on the last video. This is Chris, and he asked, he said, I almost never done squats. What are your tips for a beginner in this exercise? What should I avoid or be careful about? And I figured, I could tie these two things together because, I've been injured, not doing the exercises, thankfully, but still in training, doing martial arts. I guess you could say in combat, although it is like, sparring, doesn't really count. But it is an injury from not weightlifting. I can't tie it together perfectly, but it's good enough because there is something to learn from it. And the first thing I will say is just give it a try. You should try a squat. If you need to use assistance, if you need to use a box, like when I injured my knee last year, I was doing box squats for 3 months. I was actually doing squat every day back then, but because I was doing squat every day, I figured I'm not gonna stop this thing. I'm just gonna do what I can. And that meant using my couch. Every day I would just do 20 or 30 or 50 reps, just getting up and sitting down on my couch. And that's okay. That's actually a really good place to start. It's gonna have to change eventually, though. Eventually, you're gonna want to progress to, free, no weights, no assistance, excuse me, and you're gonna want to work on your flexibility. And actually, the best way to work on your squat flexibility is going to be by squatting. So the more reps you put in, the better you're gonna get at the exercise, right? I wouldn't say there's anything in particular you need to be careful of. The movement is actually very, very instinctive. Squatting down to take a poop is like maybe the most instinctive thing a human being can do. So I would say don't overthink it. There are some things that you want to keep in mind, like whatever direction your toes are pointing in, you're going to want your knee to go into that direction when you go down, right? So if your toes are pointing straight forward, you're going to want to have your knees pretty much straight forward when you go down. Now, another thing that you want to keep in mind is actually externally rotating the foot. So the more wide your stance is, typically the more you're going to want to rotate your foot outwards. So as a result, the more wide your stance is, the more your knees are going to go out to the side. The more narrow your stance is, the more your knees are going to drive forward. They're going to go in the direction your toes are facing. So these are just very simple things, but yeah, that's squatting. Squatting is not, too crazy. Here I am a year after, that injury, traumatic injury, tearing a ligament in my knee, and no surgeries, no nothing. I'm back to doing over 100 kilos for reps, feeling good. I was able to hit 3 sets of 5 with 225 pounds. It just feels good. I don't mind that I'm not stronger because I know that what I've had to go through, traumatic knee injury, breaking my foot 2 years ago, this stuff is a challenge, right? And, we could talk about that injury, actually, the knee injury. The reason that I think I received that injury is because during that time, I was doing a lot of squats, okay? So I was doing squat every day. Every day I was training my quads. Every day I was training my calves. And almost every day, every few days, I was training my tibialis, right? So in my lower leg, my tibialis and my calves and my feet are being worked all the time. In my upper leg, my quads are being worked, but very importantly, my glutes and my hamstrings, the posterior chain, I was not training that whatsoever. I used to do lunges, but for a couple weeks during that period, I completely stopped doing lunges. And, then I was doing some Muay Thai clinching, and my knee just gave out on me. So I would say if you're really serious about training and potentially even trying out bodybuilding, seeing how far you can develop your body, how big you could grow your muscles, all this sorts of stuff. If you want to go in that direction, look for a balanced fitness program. What I mean by that is that if you're going to be training your quads, your anterior upper leg, that means the front, anterior means front. So the front of your leg, you also want to train the back of your leg, okay? So you want to think front to back. You want a balanced equation. If I'm training my quads with squats, I should be doing my hamstrings and my glutes with at least maybe a Romanian deadlift or a hip thrust or some other hinging motion, maybe even just a back extension, maybe something like a hamstring curl, which is much more of an isolation, but still a great exercise. You're going to want to balance that equation because there's going to be some sort of tension occurring, some sort of imbalance, which could cause, in my case, a very traumatic injury. And just aim for good form. Good form means you're not in pain and you're able to move fluidly, right? You're not like jumping around, you're symmetrical, you're balanced. And that's going to look differently for everybody just based off of your personal genetics, how long your limbs are, where your muscle insertions are. We could go in depth on that all day, but I don't really have time for that, to be honest with you guys. I want to keep this simple and just say that you should try it out. You should try it out and see what works for you. Because the reason that I can even go deep in my squats is because I've done so many reps. Because if you go back and you look at my very first leg days, the very first videos on this channel, check them out. I'm not proud of them. They're not the best quality videos. I think a lot of them are even silent or quiet, but you'll see my squat depth, not very impressive. The weights I'm lifting, not very impressive. Not to say it's impressive now, but it's a little better. That's the point. It's a little better with the reps. Now I could go all the way down into the squat. A year ago, when I injured my knee, I couldn't even bend my knee more than 90 degrees. I couldn't even get to 90 degrees, to be honest with you. My knee was almost completely straight for a week. And actually, no, I couldn't straighten it out completely. So it was just stuck. It was just stuck. My body just kind of froze. It was like, whoa, something ripped. Don't move. My knee blew up. It got all inflamed. And I still continued to train it. I still continued to sit up and down in a chair, even though I had to use momentum, even though it was painful, even though it was awful. I worked through it. And 3 months later, without, any drugs, without any freaking pain meds, without anything, right? I was able to get back to training and lifting weights. And it was light weights. Okay, it was light weights. My knee still wasn't really great. And after 3 months of lifting weights, I realized actually maybe I should give it another break. Maybe I need to rest a bit more. And so I took another 3 months. And then 9 months after the initial injury, I'm back and I'm lifting weights and I'm able to progress again. And, 3 months later, I'm back to some heavy weights. And for me, it's heavy. You know, above 200 pounds is what I would consider heavy. Above my body weight is what I consider heavy. You know, everyone will tell you something different, but when it comes to weights, don't let your ego get involved. If you want to start squatting with some weights, then definitely try to get the form down with body weight first, at least for a couple reps, then see what the barbell feels like, and, you know, just progress. Each session, work up, add a little bit more weight than the last session. I mean, if you watch these videos, you'll see when I started doing the Romanian deadlifts, I could not do 255, and I definitely couldn't do it with decent form. I could not do 260, and, you know, at all. Like, I picked 260 up, my back's bending right away. But just with some practice, you get better under that load, and it's cool. If you've been watching these leg days, you'll notice that when I started doing hip thrusts, I was only doing 2 plates for reps. I'm saying only, right? For me, only. That's what I started with. 2 plates for a set of 10. And now I'm doing, what, 30 pounds more? And it's going to get even more because these are late videos, guys. I'm still progressing. I'm getting even stronger, and I'm getting stronger with the squat. Shout out to Chris. He's doing great stuff on his channel with the push-ups. And yeah, give the squats a try. Just feel it. I wouldn't worry too much about it. Just make sure, you know, it doesn't feel weird. As long as it feels okay, for the most part, you're probably okay. Now, if you do want to start lifting weights and squatting heavy and, you know, building up your legs, or even doing something like a pistol squat, I would say look up some videos on how to do the form exactly. Pistol squat's a bit tricky. And then if you're going to be lifting weights, you got to learn to do the Valsalva maneuver. You got to learn to create some internal abdominal pressure so that you can really support that weight on your back and not crumple, because that's important too. But hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you guys for watching. Click that like, comment, subscribe. See ya.